And then you're in a situation where it's not that, but you keep saying, oh, it'll get better. It'll get better. It'll get better. And you kind of keep telling yourself it'll get better, and it doesn't get better. And just the disappointment that you experience and everything that can kind of go wrong in that process.
How old were you when you with your first marriage?
Oh, I was 22 years old. I was a baby. So I look back on that now like, oh my gosh, like I really thought I was grown and like I was ready. Like, you know what I mean? And that's real. That is real talk. There are people coming out of college like, all right, I graduated college. I'm going to get a job and get married and settle down. Didn't work out.
Conversation 2, Janice.
Yes.
Trust in the aftermath of relationship trauma, women and the, quote, fix-it mentality, social drinking versus alcoholism, parenting thoughts for children of separation and divorce.
Yeah. So Janice, in a nutshell, is about my relationship with a man that was basically a functional alcoholic, and what that felt like to go through witnessing someone you love just kind of deteriorate and deteriorate at the hands of alcohol. And I had to make some really tough decisions in that situation. And so you mentioned the fix-it gene. I think there is a part of women in particular that feel like they can fix the problem. If I do this and if I do that and if I hang in here and if I'm this type of wife and I do that, then this will get better. So again, this idea that this will get better, this idea in your head of what it's supposed to look like will arrive there at some point. But what I know about substance abuse and addiction in particular is that there really has to be some ownership for that problem for the person who's using and drinking. There really has to be some dedicated ownership for that problem. There's nothing, in this situation, there was nothing I could do. I could pray it away. I could beg him and plead. I could pour out all the alcohol. I could cry. I could do whatever I wanted to do. Unless he decided he wanted to drink differently, there was nothing I could do about it. So it's kind of the helplessness of being attached to an alcoholic.
How does the parenting thoughts for children of separation and divorce tie into that scenario?
Well, on the heels of that, I'm a single mom, and as a result of the broken marriages, I'm a single mom. And sometimes women stay in relationships for family. They, the idea in their head is, well, I want my children to have a relationship with their father. I want my kids to have family. And for me, it was, I want my kids to have family. I'm very family-oriented. I don't want my children to witness alcoholism, though. And I don't want my children to witness all the deterioration associated with the deterioration of the marriage. So you think you're staying in for family, but you're really staying in for dysfunctional family. You're not staying in for healthy family. And so I really had to make a decision for healthy family.
Conversation 3, pure.
Yeah.
Codependency and substance abuse, recognizing enabling behaviors, and strained sibling relationships in the family dynamic.
Yeah, this one is very poignant in talking about the mother-child relationship in particular, because of course you don't imagine that they're going to grow up to be drug addicted or struggling with mental illness or any of that. And so there's like a maternal responsibility or a parental responsibility that kicks in that says, okay, I'll put him in rehab. Okay, and then I'll get him a job. Okay, and then I'll kind of talk to the police officer that I know that will kind of, skirt this along and get him out of the system. And then we'll put him back in rehab. And then, so you're constantly doing and fixing this problem for your child. And you don't realize that you're kind of handicapping them from being able to take some ownership for their own addiction. It's, again, that bleeding heart perspective of, I can help them and I'm the only one that can help them. And I have the responsibility as the parent. Sometimes they're 30 and 40 years old, and you're still doing the same things that you did for them when they were 15.
As opposed to doing what is truly going to be an effective way to get them out of the cycle of addiction or substance abuse that they might be in. Yes,
it takes a really hard look at the enabling behaviors that I witnessed between my mother and my brother, and what it felt like to kind of be in the same household with that.
Are your folks going to be a little upset with you when they read this book?
Good question. My mother has read it. My father has not. My mother has read it, and but she knows how I feel, so that's not a secret. You know what I mean? There's no secrets in this book as far as that goes. So no, she wasn't. She was actually very proud. I had a good talk with her about it, and I mean, this is not a new issue. This has been an issue. That issue with my brother in particular is an issue that has happened since I was 13 years old. So we're talking about well over 30 years of this issue. So it's come full circle, and it's come full circle. And she was very proud of me. She was very proud.
Well, we just met, and I'm very proud of you. I think this is a phenomenally courageous, important work. I think that it should be read because it speaks so eloquently and directly, like you said earlier, real talk, straight ahead, no punches pulled. Everybody can relate to, can understand, and access this. This is a page taken from just everyday life that so many folks experience. My guest is Dr. Melissa Tate. She's online at Dr. Meditate. It's DrMetate.com. She is on the radio at WGIV, broadcasting on TuneIn Radio on Sundays at 12 noon. And maybe I'll get to be a guest one of these days. For someone who's a therapist, for someone who has their doctorate in counseling psychology, has their master's in psychology, has the education and the depth of experience that you have, it's not written, and the conversations that you're having are not hoity-toity, aloof, in terms that are academic. It's just everyday talk, real language.
Yeah, it's not clinical, and it's written in a very human way. It's written in a very layperson way. That's what it is, and it's written in order to relate to people. There's not a person in the world who doesn't know somebody who has depression or bipolar disorder or binge drinks too much or has some DUIs and whose marriage is on the rocks. I mean, there's not a person in the world who doesn't know somebody who fits one of those criteria. And so it's a very human story that anyone can relate to, male or female, black, white, yellow, green, young and old. It's a human, relatable story.
Let's end on a positive note. We talked about some really heavy, deep stuff here. At the end of the day, we can improve our lives. Those of us who go through issues, individuals who are dealing with addiction, family members, domestic violence, substance abuse, relationships in their family that don't work, whether it be siblings, kids, spouses, there is a way to make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I am obviously a huge advocate for counseling. I use counseling as a platform to, in the office, I use this as a platform to normalize the stigma associated with mental health. So really one of my first initiatives when someone comes in and they talk about all the things they're experiencing is to just number one, validate what they're feeling, but number two, educate them as to what it means. These titles like depression and bipolar, PTSD, they're scary to people. And so they don't want to embrace the title, even though they know what they're experiencing. So I really I normalize that for people. And from a cultural perspective, there's certain cultures that are more, that are less apt to go to counseling as well. So for me, I do what I do as a means to educate people about mental health and mental illness. If I had diabetes, no one would bat an eye that I take insulin every day and that I check my sugar and that I have to watch my diet. But if I say I have depression, which is also a chemical imbalance, then there's a different association when it comes to that. I just want to normalize that mental health and mental illness and a lot of the things that people go through are really medical diagnoses as well.
And they're fixable.
And they're fixable, absolutely. So come to counseling, air out your dirty laundry. Don't keep your dirty little secrets. They wind up generational secrets and they wind up generational problems. And I just, at the end of the day, I want healthy families. And so, talk about it.
And talk to somebody who can actually help as opposed to going to the bar with your buddy and talking about why your relationship isn't working, or hanging out with your girls, or the alternative, turning to violence or alcohol to try to cope. Yeah. Because these situations, these issues are fixable. Success rate, for example, depression, unlike, say, cancer, is fixable, curable at a success rate of something like 75, 80%.
Yes, that's about right. And I always say, talk to somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game. When you talk to mom, or when you talk to your homegirl, or you talk to, your buddy at the bar, like you said, it just winds up kind of sometimes being commiserating, or it winds up, just kind of venting, and then there's no action taken to do anything different. So when you talk to someone who doesn't have any skin in the game, they have a perspective and kind of look at a larger perspective of the issue, as opposed to just, your homeboy might tell you that you should have never married that chick in the first place.
Right.
So the conversations need to be had, and I'm open, of course, to therapy. I'm very, very a big advocate of therapy.
Dr. Melissa Tate, you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your work and what you're doing in your book, and a really great perspective on dealing with the issue of stigma.
I am honored. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you.
That's our show for today. The book, Blind Passenger, it's out this month, and you can follow Melissa Tate on Twitter at Dr. Meditate, DRMETATE. You can check out Mindset at mindsetshow.com, or follow us on Twitter at Mindset Show. Remember, dare to see mental health differently, because understanding why we do what we do makes us all do better. See you next week.